All right, and welcome to the Zoomvivor Deep Dive Podcast, a CNC podcast. Today we'll be discussing the finale part 1, which is season 5, episode 11. And today my co-host is Brandon from Z3. How you doing today, Brandon?
Oh, wonderful. How are you doing today, Casey?
I'm doing okay. I'm getting ready to head out to work soon, but I'm happy that I'm able to talk to you.
Perfect.
Before we kind of dive into it, what have you been up to? Been up to any other games recently?
Yeah, I actually just got done finishing Expedition Online Season 1, which was the season where Boston Rob and Tyson selected their teams and they played against each other on an online org. And it was on Team Rob. And so I got to meet Rob, I got to meet Tyson, and did just as well as, my season here with James, not even merge. But it was a cool experience. I also was involved in James's fundraiser he did for, I think, the typhoon or something that went through the area, and got to tag team with Chaos Cast. So it's just been, COVID's been great for Survivor, fandom, which is awesome.
Yeah. Before we get into it, though, how the heck did you get involved with Tyson and Boston Rob?
Yeah, so I was on a Facebook group that was all about, a bunch of us, nerdy Survivor fans. And one of the moderators of that group asked me if I wanted to apply, and I submitted a video. And how it worked with them is they look at the audition tapes just like the real show of Survivor. And Boston Rob and Tyson, they have a Rob versus Tyson Twitch or podcast thing, and one of their shows on Wednesday night, they selected us on their teams after viewing our audition tapes. And so I was put on one of those tribes, and away we went. So it was good. I mean, nothing beats Zoomvivor, as you know, Casey.
It is a great experience as far as mini goes too. I don't think I'll ever play a mini again unless it's Zoomvivor, truly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, let's dive right into it, because I know you got your stuff and I got my stuff. So I don't think there's a ton to talk about with this episode, but everything that is more or less talk worthy happened at Tribal Council. So normally I like to start off with Tribal Council in the boot. But do you have any little tidbits you want to talk about the challenge, or, the events before the challenge?
I tell you what, Casey, I didn't get personally very far at all when it comes to the challenges. I'm still 0 for 6 when it comes to any org group challenges or immunity challenges. But, most people, when they play these orgs, they have goals like get to the final 4, or for me and you, just get to the merge. Yeah. But Zoomvivor, my ultimate goal in Zoomvivor, if I'm ever back on the show, is get to the karaoke night. I mean, that's the goal of the season. That's a fun challenge.
People seem to really like it. I would suck at it and I would probably embarrass myself. So ultimately I would like to make it to that point, but I don't know if I want to participate in the challenge.
Absolutely. I'm a DJ on the side.
Really?
And so I have a little bit of a head start for that kind of challenge. So I would love to get there someday, James. Okay. So keep that in mind if you're watching.
Hopefully a second chances. I think all the first boots need their second chances. You, Migs, and Josh.
I could not agree with you more, Casey.
So, but yeah, I mean, the challenge, it was a fun challenge. It's kind of a staple for Zoomvivor, it seems like. Happy Erica won, because I felt like last episode she's gotten her edit is becoming a little bit more predominant. We're getting good confessionals out of her. Yeah. And I said it a few podcasts ago, sometimes that's what happens with winners. Their game does not pick up until the final stretch. And there's been so many people that have won in the final stretch of the game.
Well, and she's in a good place too, where I think the two best players right now, which would definitely be Bing, who's on a tier of her own right now, at least for a viewer. And second would be Dakota. Somehow he seems, he's made so many mistakes, but has rebounded so well after making like the idol where he accidentally almost played it and then he didn't play it. So for me, just as a viewer watching from the outside, I would say they're top 2. And usually a character like Erica, as you said, her game's just now picking up. She can actually, if she does things right, just take the rest of that cast and vote out Bing and Dakota next, and she could win this thing.
Yeah, it is very, very possible. Um, I have a somewhat counterpoint to that,
Sure.
but I want to make one note of something before the challenge. And I mean, I don't have a ton of notes of before the challenge, but it's interesting that you have Kanita and Dakota who both kind of claimed credit for the Brian boot.
Okay.
And it's something that you even kind of heard again later with Dakota as well, which really confuses me about the story. Um, this is the last time I'm going to say it because this is probably the last podcast for the season anyway. But even though I was on production, I know very little about what actually happened in the game because you're stuck in certain rooms as a production member. So I don't really know what was what. So I got to trust the edit. But in the confessionals, people are claiming, X, Y, and Z, and I don't know where it's really coming down to. And Dakota has definitely done that on a couple occasions. He's claimed credit for stuff, which then even in the beginning of the game, his own ally, Sherry, claimed credit for something he was claiming credit for. Yeah. It's just crazy. I don't understand it.
And Casey, in this game, if you can talk something into reality, that is the best thing for you. That's almost the best pro you could have. The best gift a person could have on the show is the ability to talk something into reality. Because you're right, with this multi-room thing, your truth is not my truth. And all I have to do is just prove my truth makes more sense than your truth. And it's very interesting if Dakota can pull it off, if he makes it to the final three.
Yeah, I mean, if he makes it to the final three, he could definitely argue that. And that's been a thing for Survivor forever. It's always arguing that your perception of reality is the reality, But as far as the viewers go, it's really difficult to see the truth because the edit is telling us, well, it's this and it's this.
Which makes tribal council all the more important. And I wrote down a quote that Erica said. She used the words, pulled this guy out of my ass, as far as why she made a vote or something. And she needs to learn to stop that, because the more and more you're saying that you're just randomly making decisions, you have no argument or no cases in the jury. So I think Dakota and I think Bing, they're kind of using their words really well when it comes to when they're in front of other people. I think they're the two that are using their words really well. Now, it looks like Dakota is using the word loyalty a little bit too much to some people he's voted out. Yeah. So that would be a huge problem of his coming up. But if he can twist that perception into everybody's and make it everybody's reality, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, so now that we have, there's nothing else to really talk about from before the tribal council, but talking about tribal council, that was one of my notes about your first point, is that I put down that Dakota speaks very politically. All of his answers are very political. He is generally pretty good at doing that. As production and as a viewer, I see through his bullshit. The question is, does everyone else see through his bullshit? Yeah.
Yeah. And he's kind of reminding me, and shout out to Matt from my season who won. They kind of played the same game a little bit, as far as really getting the jury to think a certain way. I don't know if you've seen that either, but when he's at tribal council, he's really trying to make them think, hey, make sure you concentrate more on the strategy of this game instead of the emotions of this game. Do you get the same vibe? Or
to an extent, yeah, I do. Your season was an anomaly in a sense compared to most of these orgs or even Survivor, because I feel like your season is very game body, Mm-hmm. And plus also it felt like it was more fun. Whereas I see those similarities, but I also feel like Dakota's really trying hard. He's trying to mix the two, but also trying to keep the illusion that the two are separate.
Absolutely. And I don't know if he's going to have the friends to get by. I don't think that this is a bitter jury, or it's going to be a bitter jury, but I do think that he probably won't get some votes based on how he's carrying out this loyalty he's been talking about.
Yeah. How many times has Dakota literally been a part of voting out an ally? Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, at least 4 times.
The amount of times he said he's loyal is the answer to that question. So he's going to have some, but again, he's a pretty good talker. So we'll see what happens. And if he brings, if he brings Erica, he has a chance. Now, I really think Erica should have got him out because she needs a big game move right then and there. I forget who said it, but when you can vote out the person who you trust the most, the whole Christian, and I forget who the female was that voted Christian out in a Survivor season. Okay. Yeah. So if you can vote out your closest person, that's a I got you move. That's a winner's move on a season like this where they're eliminating the great players. Bads just went down, or Bads was my boy. I thought he was playing the best game at the time. But they've been taking down some big players. So the winner of the season needs to make a big move now.
Yeah. I feel like when you get down to around the final 5, you have to say all bets are off. I think at the end of the day, if you vote some of these people out, ultimately they shouldn't hold it against you. They could. It just depends on the person you're playing with. But kind of all bets are off around the final 5. You can still stick with your allies. I mean, hell, if I had a final 5 with, a good set of allies, I would like to continue with them until the final 3, unless there was someone that was just dominating the game. And it's a whole different story.
Do you think Bing is close to that right now?
It's hard to tell. Bing has played a really good game, but after what just happened last Tribal, this could be the perfect opportunity for Bing to be like, look what Dakota and Erica did. No one's penetrating that.
Absolutely. And her play got everyone in trouble. It went from 2 people that almost got eliminated to another 2 who were on the fence. So, playing an idol isn't, and I've been played an idol on, so I got that side down. But when you play an idol correctly, not only do you disturb that tribal, you disturb the one following. Do you think she should have mentioned the fact that she had an idol prior to the vote to get them to quarrel a little bit more? Or do you think it was right for her to play the idol and announce that she had an idol after the votes?
I almost think I think that the way she played it was the best way to go, because if taking the Erica move out of the equation for a second, if she would have announced that she had an idol and people could figure out that she had the idol, then everyone could have just shifted their votes somewhere else. And then someone else like Kenneth, for instance, he could have been gone from the game.
Absolutely.
And there would have been none of this, tie, none of this anything. And then it would have been like, all right, well, Bing really has to go now. But if Bing capitalizes on the chaos of this tribal council for next time, that just takes her one step further into the final 4.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. But I got to say, though, I'm happy there's been some time since I've watched this episode and recording this podcast. There was a rage inside me. I'm like not even kidding. I was so irritated at Erica.
Well, why?
Because I feel like Erica's played not the greatest game. And I was really I like her as a person because she seems really sweet and nice and friendly. But I started to see this journey she's going on to potentially become the sole Zoomvivor. And she freaking squandered it.
Yep. And watching, and I've seen this episode after episode, and I got to give some love to Erica. We're both from Indianapolis, so hopefully Indianapolis has one winner out of this duo. But I've noticed this whole entire season, it seems like at least the edit shows that everyone else who's in the jury is bored of her game. Every time she either wins an immunity or she says something, at least in Bad's eyes, and I think he's going to be able to talk to a couple people about how to vote and everything else. It just seems like they're bored of her game. And I think her making that big move to take out Dakota would have been huge, especially since she could have done that because I think Bing is just that strong of a next vote out, no matter. I don't think she would be in trouble. I think Bing would still be the next person, and she would have a lot more time to work on maybe making another move or getting further without hurting herself. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course. Yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing. Her game has not been overly strong to this point. So getting out, bigger threats, going into the final five and then the five into the four. And then, I mean, hell, she's won immunity once. Actually, most of the females have dominated the immunities this season.
Yeah.
So, there's a chance that she could win immunity and keep herself safe to where she gets into the final three. And then she's got a much better case to argue. And if Dakota really likes her and feels this big loyalty thing to her, then I think Dakota, being the player he is, could respect her being
Yep.
on the jury.
Yep. Yeah, I think that she's so low on the bottom that she can go ahead and knock out, an ally of hers like Dakota, and there's still more people above her that people would rather get out instead of her. And she could go for the next time. So she could have gotten Dakota out, then it could have been Bing, and then it could have been Kanita, which would be the three people I think are on top of this game. But so sad Kanita's gone. She grew on me. I didn't like her at first, but she grew on me throughout the season.
She's so pleasant. She's positive. I really like her. I feel like there's really nothing to dislike about her. Game wise, I feel like we just started to see something. But even when we just started to see something, once again, as I mentioned before, Dakota says that it's his credit, with everything that happened with Brian. And he also took the credit for Bads as well. So
it would have been interesting to see if she stayed and her proudly and bluntly, and I love that kind of game, in front of the whole entire tribal council and the jury, hey, let's do a women's alliance right now and ride this out. That would have been awesome to see if her, that boastfulness, being able to kind of that was the start of a beautiful game for her and the Rocks, baby.
Yeah, I would be so pissed off if I got out on Rocks. There are two or three things that I cannot stand in Survivor: people being rocked out, people being serried out of the game, everyone playing idols, or even a similar situation with advantages.
How about somebody getting out that say this happens? It may never ever happened, but say it's a first episode, and there's 9 people who voted your way, but then this has never happened before, Casey, but then that person, that only person who could have possibly idled that guy who got out, does it. And would you feel sorry for that person?
I would.
Yeah,
Even if I didn't exactly like him in the beginning, I might like him in the Redemption Island portion.
I have watched your show. I have heard these rumblings. Yeah. So, but anyways, I agree with you. Being rocked out. And I tell you what, on Zoomvivor, the chaos vote, I hate the person that goes home during the whole chaos. If you only have one vote and one vote only, not a fan of that, because all strategy goes out the window for the most part.
Yeah. Another thing too that I was thinking about, and I thought about this on production when everything was happening, and I thought about it again. Why did no one make the case to Erica? Erica, would you rather make one person mad in the jury by being Dakota, or would you rather piss me and Kat off, or me and Kanita off by being in the jury? Like, you just made 2 enemies instead of 1, and the one enemy that you would have made, I think, would have been fine because you have the strongest relationship with him. And knowing Dakota, I don't think Dakota, given a little time to cool down, I don't think he would have held it against you.
I don't know if she knows that she is behind Dakota by that much. Like, if it's her and Dakota and somebody else in the final, Dakota's going to get more votes, just because his game is a little bit more, I think, entertaining, strategic. For her, I think there comes a time in a game that moves so fast that you decide if you're going to be loyal or not. And she's chosen to be loyal, and I think that's hard for her to break away from that loyalty towards Dakota.
And I respect a loyal game. Like, because that's the thing. Going into these games, I play a loyal game as well. And I think playing a loyal game is very important.
Yeah.
But when you literally live in the shadow of a Titan, you got to take that Titan down. Yeah. And I think it was the same thing with, and I could be wrong, but I think it was the same thing with Bads and Kenneth. Kenneth lived in the shadow of Bads for so long that now that that person's not there casting the shadow, he's blind. He is now like trying to go through the game, but he's finding his footing now.
Yep.
And he also made a great point, or he made a great play at Tribal Council when he tried to get Dakota and Erica to be like, hey, I was feeling this bond. Let's the three of us work together. I mean, hell, that might have also potentially saved him. So I think being, out of the shadow now, he's finding his footing. Maybe he could win too. I mean,
I think so too. And I think the power in, kind of playing the game a little bit before you jump into somebody's shadows is that you've made a move before. If you haven't made a move the whole entire game, you are going to be lost in the shadows trying to figure out, how do I make a move? And if it's this late in the game and you've never made a move, you're going to be very hesitant. You've made it that far in loyalty, and to say, okay, now I want to change this completely up and be disloyal. That's scary, since that's new territory for those people like Erica and Ken. But I'm proud that Kenneth made that move, because it got him some street cred. So that's good.
Yeah. Such a frustrating episode. Such a frustrating episode.
It really took you. It really messed with you, Casey.
Yeah, it was like freaking flashbacks watching it the first time. I want to root for Erica. I want to, because I think at the end of the day, of the 5 that are left, aside from Bing, I love Bing. Aside from Bing, Erica is probably easily the most rootable. Dakota, I mean, Dakota puts on a show, but I don't think he puts on a show that paints him very,
he's a villain.
Yeah, he is a villain through and through.
Yep.
And even without his, villainy counterpart, Sherry, he is just cocky. He's entitled. He does not paint himself very well.
And I think you probably saw that a little bit more, because I can understand how that would be the case, or we could see where that would lead to that if I were given the ability to watch all the things that you watched as a moderator.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, at the same time, I still know very little of what happened. I feel like at this point, everyone pretty much knows the same of what I know. But yeah, I mean, I think on a personal level, I really like Erica. On a game level, I love Bing. Hashtag Bing Nation.
Oh yeah, I'm part of it. I'm on the Bing wagon. I'm on the Bing wagon, baby. She is finding idols everywhere, and she's saying the right things at Tribal. Like, she is. I've been writing down some of her quotes that she's been using, and she's not. She gets all behind her. Whatever she has to say, she gets behind. And you can take anything she says to the bank. So I think she's playing a game that is top tier right now, for sure.
Oh, 100%.
But she needs to watch out. That means she's next out, right? That's always what that means. But
hopefully not. Hopefully not. I mean, we have no clue. Was anyone expecting Dakota to get a vote? I think he's pretty much been able to, bob and weave through everything this whole game. I think this Tribal really showed him to be the player he is.
Yeah.
So,
and if he can sell that, then he has a chance of winning this thing. So he just needs to figure out how to sell that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do think also a couple last notes before we move on to the Zoomy Award, which I forgot to tell you about that before. You know about the Zoomy Award?
I know about the Zoomy Award. I think you mentioned it the same episode. You said you didn't like me. So we're good. It
was just in the beginning, like when my family was watching it, we were just like, he seems to be a little bit more dominant, maybe alpha villainy. We're not really sure. But man, was I cheering you on in Deep Web. Like,
thank
that
you.
whole perception just in episode 1 was gone by episode 2. So I love you, Brandon. I love you, man.
Thank you, Casey. I like you too. I like you too. So the Zoomy, is that what we're doing?
Oh, well, before we get to Zoomy, I was going to actually say 2 quick things. One, I think that if Dakota and Bing make it to the final 3, I think that there's a pretty good chance that maybe either of them could win it, although I would lean more towards Bing. And then also the other thing, and I think I mentioned it last episode on the podcast as well, the number one thing I also hate is jury confirming, denying, or getting involved in a tribal council. They should not be able to confirm or deny things. That alters the vote, and it almost potentially did alter the vote. They can't do that. They need to fix that. Survivor needs to fix that. All orgs need to fix that. Jury cannot get involved. It's very unfair. They're voted out. They don't come back into play till the end. But
yeah, well, and I think we kind of had this at this episode where Bads even held up the liar sign during tribal. I don't know if you saw that or not.
He did that last episode. I didn't see it this episode, but I wouldn't doubt it if he did it again this episode.
Okay.
But the 3 people that I saw that like made a face / like shook their head were Bads, Charlene, and Brian. So,
yep.
But yeah. But anyway, yeah, moving on to the Zoomy Award. For those who don't know, the Zoomy Award is the player of the episode. Everyone kind of has their own rubric or criteria. Me, I like to do it for the person who played the best game. Other people do it for entertaining. So I actually left my board over there, so I will not have my board with me today.
Oh,
but
shoot.
Who do you think deserves the Zoomy Award?
It's Bing Bang Boom. It's Bing. You cannot not give it to her. She completely made everyone else vulnerable at tribal. When was the last time you saw somebody go into who's going to get the votes, play the idol, and 4 people are scared for their lives because she blew up. She did what everybody else wants to do sometime when they play this game, is make everybody go crazy. I don't see how you don't vote her out. I think the competition, the karaoke game, was a little weak. I think they could have tried harder. I know my season was full of like all 6 of them were just nailing hit after hit, and I think it lasted 30 minutes. This one seemed, unless they cut it down, to last about 6 minutes. I think
it was longer than that, but I think they did cut it down.
Okay, but I think Being owned it. What about you?
100% agree. #, Bing Nation. Love her. Love Bing. I think she's played the best game in this episode. Aside from some, cocky confessionals from Dakota had no power.
How do you feel about Dakota, Casey?
Oh, yeah, I don't like him, in case you didn't know. I like Dakota on a personal level. He seems very nice, sensitive, great guy.
Yeah.
Dakota, I don't like you in this game. You are a villain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you really can't say anyone else. Maybe you can give an honorable mention to Kenneth. Maybe you can also give an honorable mention to Erica. But if Erica would have decided to get rid of Dakota, Erica hands down wins the Zoomy. No doubt.
And that's the hard part too, is, and I might argue that just a little bit, because because she first voted the way she did. Who'd she vote for? We don't get to see who voted for who, right?
She voted for Bing.
Was it all Bing except for one?
So actually, yeah, you're right. They didn't actually show the voting this episode, but I believe everyone voted for Bing except Kenita, who voted for Kenita voted for
because it was a tie, right?
Oh my God, why am I forgetting his name? Kenneth. Jesus.
Okay.
Oh my God, I said his name like 5 times earlier.
Right.
Yeah, she voted for Kenneth, and then Kenneth voted for Dakota.
Okay.
Or no, wait. Bing voted for. Oh God, Bing voted for Dakota, and then Kenita voted for Kenneth because she tried to stray the vote. So Kenneth was in the majority, which was also his whole plea of like, I started to feel close to you, and now we're I want to move together.
Cool.
But yeah, so that was the vote anyway. So maybe that's why they didn't show it, because it was kind of more straightforward. But I still love when they show it. I think that should be in every episode. It reminds me of actual Survivor when they do that.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've seen in another org that James, what you could do is them hold up the name as they're doing the talking. I love that he's throwing in the tribal council talking. I love every single bit of what he's added to this game. It's getting better and better week in and week out. I want to make sure I say this too, is Matt. I said Matt and Dakota are playing the same game. Matt played a much better game, won a lot more immunities, and I just wanted to make sure that if Matt's ever hearing this, that Matt is better than Dakota. There you go.
I think I would agree with that. I feel like Z3 and Z4 had very dominant winners. A little bit more of a struggle for Matt though, but I think he maneuvered the game very well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I guess on that, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
I don't see how Bing loses this without, not winning anything. Can they find another idol? Is there another idol out there? It's on 5, so
I don't think so. I'm not really sure what the rules are. I mean, in regular Survivor, yeah, I don't think they could, but in this, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that it's Bing or Dakota with Erica's loyalty. It's going to be hard to, get him out of there. But man, if she can get Dakota out in this next vote, that gives her a lot of points and may give her a good talk at the end. But I think that whatever you say in front of the jury, those words need to be, pruned and exactly right. Because this season is not like a season where Rain's in and Rain won like 5 episodes in. This is going to be more highly contested, especially if Bing's gone.
I think that's very possible. All right. So I guess on that note, thank you guys for tuning in. I think this is probably the last podcast of the season. So I appreciate everyone who has subscribed and viewed these podcasts. Thank you for Brandon for joining me today. If you could please like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. And just take a second to share it. I'd really appreciate that as well. But on that note, have a good day, guys.
Perfect. See you guys.